The shooting range. In this episode, pages of history, Israeli infantry fortress, arsenal, best loadouts for the F-15, and metal beasts, 3++ generation fighter. War Thunder players have long been accustomed to seeing 4th-gen fighters in top-rank battles, while the Vietnam War-era aircraft have left the eternal struggle for air superiority. Today's highlight, however, is ready to change the notion a little. Please welcome a fighter that could be placed in the 3++ generation, the MiG-21 Bison. At first glance, there's no difference between this and the regular MiG-21 bis. It's propelled by the same turbojet engine with a total afterburning power of 7,300 kilogram forces. More than enough for a light machine to quickly climb and reach its top speed. The latter isn't impressive though, especially when compared to more modern fighters. The 21 hits its flutter speed early, so don't expect to be racing around in it. On the other hand, this low limit is good for fuel efficiency. Since you'll need to turn the afterburner off pretty often, the internal tanks have enough fuel for most battles. There's a similar situation with maneuverability. The plane can make amazing turns at the beginning of a fight and outturn most opponents. Only, it spends too much energy on that and quickly finds itself exhausted. It's only fair to ask, why does the Bison have such a high battle rating? Well, it's all about the hardware. To be exact, the electronic equipment and the weapons. This aircraft can carry 2 close-range R-73s and just as many medium-range R-27 missiles. The former are amazing in close-quarters fights. Thanks to the helmet-mounted display and thrust control, you can complete a duel in just a couple of maneuvers and move on before you bleed too much speed. As it often happens, medium-range missiles come in 2 variants, with infrared and with radar-guided homing devices. Both are amazing at their respective jobs and can hit enemies just fine where the R-73 can't reach. In addition to great weapons, the fighter has everything it needs to defend itself. A modern radar warning system gives a heads-up in case of danger, and countermeasure blocks on the sides of the hull provide a chance to escape an incoming hit. In terms of CAS, the Bison is a pretty modest performer, but it's still better than the base model. In addition to rockets and conventional bombs, it can offer the TV-guided CAB 500KR bombs. Despite its respectable age, the MiG-21 Bison can keep the youngsters company and is not planning to retire anytime soon. Few armored personnel carriers or infantry fighting vehicles have defenses comparable to the Israeli Namer. Its development followed a pretty curious path, full of unique combat experience and numerous unconventional solutions. By the early 1980s, the Israeli army had accumulated a large fleet of outdated heavy vehicles. They had the British Centurions, also known as the Schott, the Soviet T-54s and T-55s, and all of them had inferior levels of performance compared to the modern Merkava MBTs and even the late modifications of the Magah, but it didn't make them worthless. Engineers can often find a new way to use obsolete combat vehicles. The 105mm Shermans are a good example of that. But this time, Israel decided to make some auxiliary vehicles. For instance, there was an IFV project using the T-55 with a new crew compartment, improved armor, and a better engine. Despite the fact that the turret was removed, the resulting vehicle got even heavier. The program was deemed successful, and the new vehicles found their ways into service. Infantry survivability soared, and when vehicles needed even more armor, they could always use modular add-ons. A similar thing happened to the early versions of the Merkava in the early 2000s. The chassis and hulls of the first models were vastly different from the modern ones, and they couldn't be used as tanks anymore. The base was very good upcycle material, though. Unlike the T-55, the Merkava's original layout was already similar to a PC's due to the engine compartment in the front and a large crew section in the rear. Computer-aided design software sped up the development. As it turned out, the tank had huge potential for change. For instance, the engineers reused the third version's power plant. By 2008, the final design was clear: a 1,200 horsepower engine, composite front armor, and a personnel compartment for 9 people, not counting the crew. Production models had no large-caliber weapons. Only some vehicles had an unmanned turret with a 30mm autocannon. An active protection system was also in the plans, but budgetary limits put a stop to that. The Namer armored personnel carrier turned out to be pretty reliable and very well protected for its class. Its platform can even fit the Spike anti-tank guided missile system. The only questionable part of the design is its mass. This Israeli APC isn't just heavier than its counterparts, it's heavier than many main battle tanks. Still, it looks like the benefits far outweigh this flaw, and the Namer remains one of the best in its class. We've recently talked about the Su-27, and today it's time to talk about another heavy fighter, the F-15. With the recent additions, this family now has 6 models in 3 nations. Let's talk about them all. As is our tradition, we'll start with discussing air combat. A classic loadout for early versions is 4 medium-range Sparrows and just as many close-range missiles. The American and Israeli version's best choice is the AIM-9M, while the Japanese one can use its own AAM-3s. All early missiles are basically the best in their respective classes, but the true highlight of this summer is even more advanced. The 3 top F-15s can now boast a new in-game record. Each of them can carry up to 8 active radar homing missiles. The Japanese version brings something extra. In addition to the standard AIM-120A, it can use its own AAM-4s. You might even feel like it's too many Fox 3s for a single battle, so you could use some combo loadouts with infrared-guided missiles for close range. The wings can carry more than weapons, though. The F-15 is pretty fuel-hungry and could always use more tanks. All 6 modifications can carry up to 3 drop tanks with a total capacity of almost 7,000 liters. But wait, there's more. 2 versions can also fit conformal fuel tanks, adding 2,800 liters each, and the grand total is no less than 12,600 liters of extra fuel. Conformal fuel tanks provide extra benefits. They create less air drag than drop tanks and occupy no hardpoints. They can even add them, but we'll get back to that later. The biggest drawback of conformal tanks is that you can't drop them and lighten your aircraft. The F-15 isn't supposed to hit ground targets, at least the fighter versions, but they do have a few tools for close air support in the arsenal. The smallest tool set belongs to the Japanese versions. They're limited to a few types of conventional bombs. As usual, the handiest ones are the biggest, 2,000 pounds. For the Israeli and American versions, the main weapon is the TV-guided GBU-8 bombs. Now, about those extra hardpoints added by conformal fuel tanks. The American F-15C can carry an extra dozen small-caliber bombs thanks to the tanks. Can't say it's a major buff to firepower, but it sure looks impressive. Tell us in the comments what aircraft you'd like to see next. Meanwhile, it's time for us to answer some of your questions. The first question was sent by a player called Davey DeVitos. What's the point of those fences around the hulls of some tanks? It doesn't seem like it can block anything. Hi, Davey. They're called slat screens, and what they do is defend against heat shells. The slats disrupt incoming rounds before they can hit the armor, preventing shaped charges from forming. Stealthy Amram asks, what's the best armament for the MiG-23 ML? Hi there! Almost missed you. The best air combat set includes 4 R-60Ms for close range and a couple R-24Rs for medium range. As for attacking tanks, go for the S-24B rockets. Another question comes from Nosewheel. How How can I know when my Fox 3 is locked on with its own radar? Hey, Nosewheel, you can spot it on the radar indicator. See that line connecting your missile to the target? While it's dashed, your missile uses your aircraft's radar. When it changes to a continuous line, it means that the missile has achieved its own lock. Chrisman writes, what's the difference between the Tech Tree Sea Harrier and the one that can be unlocked with squadron points? Hi, Chrisman. The only differences are the number of air-to-air missiles and battle ratings. And the last comment for today was written by AstroGamer. The missile knows where it is. It knows this because you told it. Hello, AstroGamer. In fact, even if you never tell the missile where it is, it can find out. Because it always knows where it isn't. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to paint your F-15 red for that extra speed. Leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.